Hi, how's it going? My name is Bernard. All of us have some strange quirks about us that other people might find strange. One thing that I do is I only listen to certain music at a particular point in the year. There is spring music, there's summer music, there's fall music, and there's winter music. And I never listen to winter music in the summer, and vice versa. So, being fall up here in the Northern Hemisphere, and under a suggestion from my buddy PoptartBarbarian, I'm gonna do a video about my music selections and how they've changed over the years. I'm not mentioning everything, obviously, but back in my day, we didn't have Spotify, we didn't have streaming music through YouTube, we had CDs. Actually, I lived in the time when there were cassette tapes, and having a CD player in your car was a big deal. This was around 98, 99, having a CD player was big. So, okay, well, now you know the first recommendation that I had for fall music. When it comes to Metallica, there's really only 4 albums that are okay. And I'm sure somebody's gonna neckbeard about this. My personal favorite is Ride the Lightning. And this entire album is good. There's 8 songs on here. There isn't really another album that I can think of where every single song is perfect. Kill 'Em All has its fair share of really bad songs. And Justice for All is, I mean, it's become a joke. Like literally the drums are, it could have been played by a machine. I'm sure I'm gonna get hate for that. And the bassist had already died by this point. You can't hear the bass in this album. Alright, well, since we're on the topic of heavy metal in the 80s, there was actually 4 big bands from around then. There was Metallica, and then there was Slayer. And this is their shortest album. This is only 29 minutes long. It's called Rain and Blood. I can't say every single song on this album is good. Anthrax. This is my favorite album from them. It's Anthrax Spreading the Disease. It's just a little bit cheesy. If you hear the song Madhouse, and my favorite song is Lone Justice, but if you hear those two, you'll see that there isn't quite the polish that Ride the Lightning has. The funny thing about Anthrax is that they really only had 2 good albums. I'm sure I'm gonna get hate for this. These are the 2. So there's another one called Among the Living After Spreading the Disease. These came out back to back, so this was 1985 and this was 1987. What happened was that the year after, in 1988, you had this album called State of Euphoria, which only had like 2 good songs. The first one, Be All End All, I think the last song was really good too. I haven't heard this for a long time. I opened the album, right? And there's a receipt in here that I have. Paid $10 on November 25th, 2005 for this album. Alright, so we're still on heavy metal. Heavy metal changed after the 80s, and we have, you really can't mention heavy metal without talking about Pantera. So Cowboys from Hell isn't their first album, I think it's their 3rd, but it's one of, it's their first commercial breakthrough. This whole album is good, and what followed in 2 years later, so this was 1990, this is 1992, Vulgar Display of Power. Can you imagine an album with this cover made it to #1 on the Billboard charts? Like, how does that happen? This entire album is really good too. My favorite songs on here, A New Level, Walk, This Love, and Irregular People Conceit was pretty good too. That's from what I remember of these albums. This was brought up in my Discord server, so links in the description below if you'd like to talk more music. This album, Dio, Holy Diver, this whole album is really, really good. In 1980, they came out with this album, Black Sabbath, called Heaven and Hell, and it features Dio on vocals. This is one of my favorite Black Sabbath albums. The songs Neon Nights, that's the first one, Children of the Sea, Walk Away, Wishing Well, all fantastic songs. Now what's interesting is when Heaven and Hell came out in 1980, at the exact same time Ozzy Osbourne formed his own band, which is I think where he became the most famous, and called Blizzard of Oz. Now the problem with Blizzard of Oz is that in 2002 Ozzy re-recorded I think the bass and the drums because he didn't want to pay royalties to the original artist or something like that. So there was a remastered version out there that was the then bassist of Metallica. This entire album is good. Okay, and to wrap it up with the heavy metal that I listen to in the fall, I have Iron Maiden. This isn't all the Iron Maiden I have, but back in the day when you had remasters, like the spines of the CDs used to make faces. I don't have all of them, and I think they're in the wrong order, but this was the face that's formed here is the first album of Iron Maiden. My favorite album from Iron Maiden is Somewhere in Time. This is the one album that has stayed the test of time. I've been listening to Maiden for like 15 years now. It's interesting because there was another album back in the day that people, you know, they just fucking loved. It was Power Slave. I mean, look at this art. Like, just the art itself is, like, I would buy it just to hang it up somewhere. This album was okay. Everyone loved the song 2 Minutes to Midnight. But anyways, go for the song Sea of Madness. It's the third song on the album. That's one of my favorite Iron Maiden songs. Alright, so we're done with heavy metal. I remember when this album came out in 1994. Green Day's Dookie. This was their third album. This is an album you can just listen to the entire way through. I can't play any of these songs because I'm gonna get in trouble, but oh my god. This album, it screams 90s and it screams like fall time. Even though it was released in February of 94, like I just associate it with the sounds of fall, like this particular album. It's so good. Next up, it's another punk album called Siren Song of the Counterculture from Rise Against. This is a Chicago band. This album came out in 2004. This entire album is so good, especially the last 4 songs. I'll name them off. Give It All, Dancing for Rain, Swing Life Away, Rumors of My Demise have been greatly exaggerated. The album that came out before this is called Revolutions Per Minute. That was a very good album, but the album that came out after this, The Suffering and the Witness, which came out in 2006, really wasn't that good, and by 2006 I had stopped really following a lot of the bands that I did. The next one is an alternative rock band. To me, Mars Volta only came out with one good album. I'm sure I'm gonna get hate for that. Deloused in the Comatorium, such a fantastic album. It's a concept, the entire thing tells a story, and it's a story about a heroin addicted guy who was based off of a story from one of their real life friends. And he ends up like committing suicide, or he goes crazy, or I think he's already dead and he gets up and he like has these weird visions, something like that. This is such a good album. It has such a dark sound too. It's perfect for fall because, you know, the times are just getting so much shorter and the days just get darker for a lot longer. You'll know what I mean if you listen to this album. Listen to it the entire way through. Alright, this is one of my all-time favorites. Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness from the Smashing Pumpkins. This is a double album, and if you look at the art on here, I can't stress it enough. Like, this is the kind of art that I love, and it's not, I don't know if it's because I saw this as a kid, but even the discs have like faces on them. Look at this. Like, just the album art on this is so fantastic. Like, this is the kind of stuff that, like, it's kind of like Don't Starve Together art, but it's just, there's something so disturbing about it. But like, it's not disturbing in like a bad way. Like, look at this girl like looking at you. Look at these kitty cats getting married. Like, there's something so like out of this world about this art. I don't know how to describe it. If somebody knows this particular style of art, like, let me know what it is. And of course, we see Billy Corgan when he was young and back when he had hair. I remember the day that this came out, my sister went to the record store to get it. I got like a weird South American copy. It's like, the original one had like a thick case. I had one, my sister had one, we listened to it all the time. So good. Speaking of Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, I bought a box set. The Aeroplane Flies High, and I broke the handle off of this box. But this has all of the B-sides to all the songs on there. There's 5 additional discs in here, and it's for all 5 singles. My favorite one is this. Is the Zero single. There's 7 songs, and the last one is 26 minutes long. It's all of the intros from all of the outtake songs that they had. The song God should have made it on to Melancholy, my opinion. That's the best one. There we go, here's more of that art. A ripped face with a girl peeking out of it. It looks like it's straight out of a horror game, doesn't it? And then we have an atomic bomb dropping on rainbow little children playing instruments. You can still pick these up for I think like 40 bucks. Alright, so really quick to round up the rest of like alternative rock. Queens of the Stone Age, Lullabies to Paralyze, very dark album, dark sounding. The tones that come out of this album, it's very much something you'd expect from the fall. I don't like every song on this, but I know like maybe the first 5 or 6 songs are really good on here. Next up is Incubus. Morning View is the one that I picked out for the fall. I think I only like 2 Incubus albums, Morning View and Science. The first 5 songs are amazing on here. Alright, so somebody had mentioned this on my channel too in the comments. There's a band called Death From Above 1979. This album is called You're a Woman, I'm a Machine. It's self-indulgent misogyny up to the point of like almost making fun of itself. There's a song on here called Little Girl, and just look up the lyrics to that and you'll know what I mean. But the sound on this album, fantastic. It'll be in the Spotify playlist below. Alright, the last one I'm gonna put for alt rock is Foo Fighters. In Your Honor, which is my favorite album from theirs. It's a double album. There's 2 discs. The first one is like regular rock and the second one is like more acoustic. I like the second album so much better. Just the first song, if you listen, like put it as your alarm, the first song. It's like a magical experience, just kind of like a blossoming and an awakening, and that like your day is just gonna be that much better because the song played for your alarm. I'm not even kidding. The second disc, the entire thing is good. But if you're gonna go with the second disc, listen to Virginia Moon, the 8th track at night. You'll know why. Queensryche, Operation Mindcrime. The whole thing's a story. I listened to this around the time Half-Life 2 came out, and the stories are almost parallel. You have like this crazy authoritarian government trying to take control. It's like a conspiracy going on. Go for Breaking the Silence and I Don't Believe in Love. There's some like cheesy 80s in this album. It came out in 1988. So good. Alright, and the last one I'm gonna mention for when I was following a lot of bands is U2. War is my favorite album. This is my favorite album from them. Some people say that Joshua Tree is their best album, but I don't know. There's something just so raw and young about War. The whole album is good. So now we're getting into what I've been listening to over the last 10 years. The first one is Jamiroquai, Traveling Without Moving, came out in '97. The first 4 songs, oh, I love that. This is the only album of theirs that I like though, unfortunately. Their newer stuff just really doesn't hold up. I'm almost positive you heard Virtual Insanity at some point in time. Alright, next up is a smooth jazz guitarist named Matt Marshak. I remember buying this album on Amazon in 2011. This was like one of the last CDs that I bought. This is such a good album. You have to listen to it at night though. Like it's one of those kinds of things that if you live near a big city, it's like you wanna listen to this while driving through like on a Saturday night where like the city's like not too busy. They don't do this anymore. Like this actually makes me kind of sad because everything's digital now. Alright, so I mentioned at the very beginning of this video that I listen like almost only to Jerry Garcia band and Grateful Dead. Jerry Garcia was the guitarist of the Grateful Dead and he had his own band which was like more rhythm and blues type of songs. When you listen to the Grateful Dead and Jerry Garcia band, like they have 30 years worth of live recordings from their shows. Like I think there was one year that Jerry Garcia played like 240 shows in a year. That was 1972. So the guy was crazy, obviously. Like that's almost like a show that's more than every other day. Like I don't know how you do it, but that's what he was doing. Some shows aren't as good as others. So I do have some of the albums that came out. The one problem that I had with albums like this, like okay, look. This kind of thing is really cool because it says well matched, right? And it looks like a matchbook. And there's like definitely the first song on here, Mystery Train. That is the best rendition of Mystery Train I have ever heard. And I've heard like more than 100 Jerry Garcia band shows. So this is a compilation though, so it's not a continuous show. The other one that I had too on here was that this isn't a continuous show either, but this is like all the best songs from those shows, because there are some performances that like aren't that good when it comes to live tapes. This was back in 1975 from where all these recordings are from. This one's from 1973 of these recordings. Those are some of his best times. And I have 2 shows. I have more, but I'm not going to show all of them. The one that I really like out of all of these is the one that was played on New Year's Eve 1975. This was played at the Keystone Berkeley, which I don't think is there anymore. But if you know anything about the Grateful Dead, in 1975, they only played 4 shows. They broke up in 1974, right around the time that they shot the Grateful Dead movie, because they thought, you know, after 9 years that it was just too much for the band. And you know, the hippie era was, I mean, it wasn't the 60s hippie era by the early 70s, but it was kind of fading, and you know, the good old days were gone. But by 1976 the Grateful Dead would come back. This is the only New Year's Eve show, I believe, that the Jerry Garcia band did. This one's really good. There's one more link in the description below to my personal favorite Jerry Garcia band show. It's February 6th, 1972 at the Pacific High Studios. That, in my opinion, is like continuous the best show that Jerry Garcia has ever played. There's another one that's really good, is November 23rd, 1977, although I don't think that exists on YouTube. I had to torrent that show. So funny thing, actually, in Chicago I actually had to go to an actual tape trader for Grateful Dead tapes, and I got this show from him. He digitized a copy of it for me. I don't know, maybe I'll like spawn a seed in a torrent or something for it. But November 23rd, 1977, one of the best. I'm gonna put a link to a podcast for Jerry Garcia Band. I hope the link is still there. But that's what I've really been listening to over the fall time, although now it's really been smooth jazz since I've moved here. One last album I want to bring up is this album from a band called Global Grooves, and I don't think that this album sold more than 500 copies. But it is so good. And I'm very upset that they're never going to make another album, it looks like. But this album is just, it's fantastic. I bought it off Amazon. It's one of the few digital-only music purchases I've ever made. I usually buy CDs when I can. My CD collection is huge. This is only a part of the fall music that I have. If you like this kind of video, please leave a like. That'll let me know if you do enjoy it. And everything's in the description below, and there's a Spotify playlist that links to all of the songs that I mentioned. Anyways, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Adios, amigos.